The jungle was alive with sound. Birds cried from the high trees. Insects hummed in the thick air, and the heavy leaves rustled whenever the wind passed through. Daniel moved slowly, his boots sinking into the damp soil. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and checked the small scanner in his hand. The device blinked with a strange signal, one that grew stronger the deeper they walked into the forest. Behind him walked his team. There was Maria, who carried the maps and notes of the ruins they had studied. She was quiet, but her sharp eyes missed nothing. Beside her was Luis, a strong man from the local village who knew the paths better than anyone. And last was Peter, who carried the heavy gear and often complained but never left the group behind. They had traveled for days to reach this part of Central America, guided not only by history books but also by whispers of the villagers. The people spoke of a place called the Cave of Echoing Spirits. No one dared to enter it, for they believed voices of the dead lived there. To Daniel, however, this was not a tale of fear but a clue. He had studied ancient Mayan ruins for years, and something about this story was different. It felt less like myth and more like memory. The villagers had warned them before they left. An old woman had stood at the edge of the village, her hands trembling as she raised them toward Daniel. "The cave is not for men," she said in a low voice. "The voices are not human. The spirits guard what is not meant to be touched." Daniel had bowed respectfully but had not turned back. He believed the cave held something far more than spirits. His research had shown strange marks on temple walls, carvings that looked more like star maps than religious art. His scanner readings matched the same patterns. If he was right, then something ancient and powerful lay hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be found. As the day grew hotter, the team reached a ridge. Luis stopped and raised his hand. "We are close," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes searched the trees as if watching for something unseen. Daniel stepped up beside him. From the ridge he could see the valley below. There, half covered by vines and trees, was a stone structure unlike the others they had passed. It was not a temple rising upward, but an entrance leading into the earth. The stone door was wide, cracked by time, and marked with carvings of faces. The faces did not look like Mayan kings or priests. Their eyes were too sharp, their shapes too strange. Peter let out a low whistle. "That's it? Doesn't look like much." Maria shook her head. She moved closer to study the carvings. "These are not normal patterns. Look here. The spirals repeat like waves, and these lines look like they were made with tools finer than stone chisels. This is not only Mayan work." Daniel's heart beat faster. He had felt it for years, the pull of something greater than what history had told. Civilizations rose and fell, but there were gaps in their stories, signs of things left behind. He believed the Mayans had hidden something they did not fully understand, something not from this world. The team made their way down into the valley. The air grew cooler, and the sound of the forest softened. It was as if the place itself wanted silence. Even the birds did not fly near the stone entrance. Luis touched the wall gently and whispered a prayer under his breath. Daniel stepped forward, placing his hand against the cool stone. For a moment, he thought he heard something, faint, almost like a sigh carried on the wind. It was not the sound of the forest. It came from inside. Peter laughed nervously. "Must be the echo." The old woman was right, huh? Spirits whispering, but Maria frowned. "No, that sound was too clear. It was like a voice, but not in any language I know." Daniel pulled the scanner from his belt. The device blinked with rapid light, stronger than ever. The signal was not random. It pulsed in a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. His chest tightened with both fear and excitement. He turned to the others. "This is it. The Cave of Echoing Spirits." The stories were true. The team stood together at the entrance. The shadows within stretched into darkness, deep and endless. It was not only a cave, but a doorway. The air smelled of stone, earth, and something metallic. Daniel felt the weight of centuries pressing around him, as if thousands of eyes watched from the walls. Maria adjusted her pack and nodded. "If we are going in, then let us go while the light is with us." Luis crossed himself and stepped aside, letting Daniel lead. Peter groaned softly but followed close behind. Daniel took a deep breath and raised his lantern. The light flickered against the carvings, making the faces seem alive. He felt the whisper again, clearer this time, almost as if the cave itself spoke his name. With steady steps, he moved into the darkness. The others followed. Behind them, the jungle grew silent and the mouth of the cave swallowed their shapes. The discovery had begun. The cave swallowed the light of the jungle as Daniel and his team stepped deeper inside. The lantern in his hand sent weak yellow light across the walls, but the darkness pressed close, heavy and thick. The air felt cooler now, touched with damp stone and something else, an old scent of metal that did not belong in the earth. The walls were not smooth. They carried carvings, shapes that twisted like rivers and spirals. Some looked like stars, others like strange animals. Daniel slowed down, brushing his hand across the stone. The carvings seemed to shimmer under the lantern light, as if they had been made with something brighter than paint. Maria leaned close to one of the spirals. "These are not just drawings," she whispered. "Look at the lines. They glow faintly when the light hits them. It is like they are filled with something inside the stone." Peter shifted nervously behind them. Or maybe they are just wet. Caves do that, right? But even Luis frowned. He placed his hand on the wall and quickly pulled it back. "No, this is not wet. It feels warm, like a living thing." The deeper they went, the more the cave seemed to change. The ceiling grew higher, the walls spread wide, and the air began to carry sound. Every footstep echoed, and every breath seemed to bounce back a second later. It was then that Daniel heard it, the first whisper. It came faint just beyond the sound of their own steps. A long sigh, like a word carried through water. He froze, raising his hand for silence. The others stopped listening. The whisper returned. This time it was clearer. Not one voice, but many, layered over one another. They were not speaking Spanish, nor English, nor any language Daniel knew. The sounds were sharp, rising and falling like notes of music. Peter's eyes grew wide. "You hear that, don't you? It's not just me." Maria nodded, her face pale but curious. "Yes, it is not the wind. These are patterns, like someone trying to speak." Daniel felt the hairs on his arms rise. He quickly pulled the scanner from his belt and pointed it toward the sound. The device blinked and chirped, reading waves of energy from the walls. The lights formed a rhythm, short, long, short, like a message trying to be understood. "This is no ghost," Daniel said quietly. "This is a signal. The walls are carrying it." The whispers grew stronger the deeper they walked. Sometimes they sounded close, as if someone stood right behind them. Other times they stretched far away, as if echoing from the bottom of the earth. The voices rose and fell together, weaving into something strange but not random. Luis kept his hand on the hilt of his machete. The elders were right. "Spirits live here. We should turn back." Daniel shook his head. "Not spirits. Something older. Something waiting." The tunnel opened suddenly into a wide chamber. The ceiling rose high above, hidden in shadow. Stalagmites rose from the ground like stone teeth, and the walls curved with smooth precision. At the center stood a tall column carved with spirals. The spirals glowed faintly blue, as if light lived within the stone itself. The whispers echoed louder here. They spun around the chamber, bouncing from wall to wall. The sound pressed into Daniel's ears until he almost believed the voices spoke directly to him. Maria walked closer to the column. She placed her palm against it, and the blue glow brightened. The whispers shifted, becoming sharper, faster, as though they recognized her touch. She pulled her hand back, startled. It reacted. "This is not stone. This is something else." Daniel stepped forward, feeling his chest tighten with excitement. He touched the column. The glow spread like water across the surface, and the scanner in his hand blinked wildly. The pattern was no longer random. It formed lines, curves, almost like written symbols. Peter backed away, shaking his head. "I don't like this. It's too strange. We should leave before this thing wakes up." But Daniel could not move away. He traced the glowing symbols with his finger, watching as they shifted under his touch. The cave seemed alive, as if it had been waiting for someone to arrive. Then for the first time the whispers broke into something clear. A single word echoed in a voice deep and metallic. The sound filled the chamber and shook the stone under their feet. None of them understood the word, but they knew what it was. It was a greeting. Luis's face grew pale. It spoke. Daniel's heart raced. His hands trembled, but his eyes burned with wonder. He turned to the others. "This is proof. This is not a legend. The Mayans did not make this alone. They found it and they built around it. This is a machine. It has been speaking for centuries." The voices rose again, stronger, filling the chamber like a storm of sound. It was no longer just whispers, but a song of many voices together. The light from the column pulsed with each note, casting shadows across the team. Maria clutched her journal, writing quickly even as the chamber shook. "If this is a message, then it has been calling out for centuries." And now it has found us. Daniel knew she was right. The cave of echoing spirits was not a tomb, not a place of fear, but a doorway. What waited beyond it was no treasure of gold or jewels, but something greater. As the chamber filled with light, Daniel felt one thought strike him with clarity. Humanity had just opened a chapter of history it was never meant to forget. The chamber trembled with sound, yet Daniel stood firm. His lantern shook in his hand, but his eyes stayed fixed on the glowing column. The whispers continued, rising and falling like waves until they grew quiet again. For a moment there was only silence, a silence so deep it pressed against the ears. Then came the grinding of stone. From the far edges of the chamber, 4 massive statues began to move. At first Daniel thought his eyes deceived him, but the truth became clear. The statues that lined the walls, carved in the shapes of Mayan gods with fierce eyes and tall headdresses, were not stone at all. Their bodies shifted with joints of metal, their surfaces shining as flakes of rock fell away. Maria gasped and stumbled back, her journal clutched against her chest. They are alive. Peter dropped his pack and pulled out a flashlight, shining it on the figures. That's not possible. They were statues. I saw them. They can't just move. But they did. Each guardian stepped forward, the sound of their feet heavy against the floor. Their eyes glowed with the same blue light as the column. They raised their arms, not in attack but in recognition. Still, the sight of such giant machines made the team's hearts race. Luis gripped his machete tightly, though he knew it would be useless against such beings. His voice was low, steady, but filled with fear. The elders spoke of this, guardians, spirits of stone that protect the treasure of the cave. Daniel swallowed hard. He forced himself to step in front of his team, raising his lantern high. Wait, look at them. They are not charging. They are watching. Indeed, the guardians did not attack. They stood tall, scanning the humans with beams of light that moved from head to toe. The glow lingered on Daniel longer than the others, almost as if the machines recognized something in him. Maria's voice shook, but her mind was sharp. They are not here to destroy. They are measuring us, testing us. Daniel nodded slowly. He remembered the carvings on the temple walls, the spirals that had pointed him here. They had not been warnings but instructions, signs left for those who could understand. The Mayans had lived with these machines, had guarded them, perhaps even worshipped them. The largest guardian stepped forward. Its face was carved like a jaguar, its jaw strong and teeth sharp. Blue light burned in its eyes. It raised its hand, palm open. A beam of light extended outward, forming symbols in the air. They spun slowly, strange curves and lines that looked like writing but shifted too quickly to read. Daniel pulled out his scanner. The device beeped wildly, trying to record the symbols. He stared at the patterns, his mind racing. They were not random. They repeated in sets like numbers or a code. Peter's voice cracked with fear. Daniel, whatever they're saying, I don't think they want us here. But Daniel shook his head. No, this is not a warning. This is a choice. The guardians began to move again, spreading out and forming a circle around the team. Their giant frames towered over the humans, yet their movements were not of anger. They stood still, waiting. Daniel stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. His heart pounded, but he did not let fear take him. He raised his hand, copying the gesture of the guardian. Slowly, he opened his palm toward the light. For a long second, nothing happened. Then the symbols shifted, forming a single glowing spiral in the air. The spiral pulsed once, twice, then faded. The guardians lowered their arms, their blue eyes dimming slightly. Maria let out a shaky breath. You did it. You answered them, Luis whispered almost to himself. They see him as one of their own. Daniel lowered his hand, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. He turned to his team. These guardians are not enemies. They are protectors. They have been waiting for someone who could understand. The chamber shifted again. The floor rumbled and a passage opened at the far end, hidden until now. The guardians turned toward it as if guiding the humans forward. The path led deeper into the cave, into darkness where even the lantern light could not reach. Peter shook his head. This is madness. We should leave while we still can. Whatever is down there, it's not meant for us. But Daniel's voice was steady, filled with wonder. It is meant for us. That is why we are here. That is why the guardians allowed us to pass. The team hesitated, caught between fear and discovery. Maria touched the glowing column one last time, her fingers tracing the symbols. This cave is not a tomb. It is a test, And we have only just begun. Daniel turned toward the new passage, lantern raised high. The guardians stood still now, their task complete. They would not follow, but their eyes watched silently, glowing faintly in the darkness. With steady steps, Daniel led his team into the unknown passage. Each echo of their footsteps was joined by a faint whisper, as if the cave itself approved. What lay beyond was hidden, but Daniel knew one thing with certainty. They had passed the first gate, and the true secret of the cave of echoing spirits was waiting for them. The new passage was narrow and long. The air grew colder as Daniel and his team walked forward, their footsteps echoing against the stone. The lantern's flame flickered, throwing dancing shadows across the walls. The sound of whispers followed them, softer now as though urging them deeper. Daniel led the way, his heart heavy with both fear and hope. The guardians had let them through. That alone meant they were worthy to see what lay ahead. He kept his eyes sharp, watching every detail of the tunnel. Strange carvings continued along the walls, spirals, stars, and shapes of beings that did not look human. Maria ran her fingers over one carving. These are records. Look, this one shows a group of people standing before tall figures. They are not Mayans. Their heads are longer, their arms thinner. They must be the ones who made this place. Luis muttered a quiet prayer as he glanced at the image. Not gods, not men. Something in between. The tunnel suddenly widened, and the team entered a vast chamber unlike anything they had ever seen. The ceiling stretched high into darkness, supported by smooth walls that shone faintly like polished metal. At the center of the chamber rose a platform, and on it lay objects that glimmered with otherworldly light. Peter froze, his mouth open. Now that looks like treasure. But it was not treasure in the way they had imagined. There were no piles of gold, no jeweled crowns or ornaments. Instead, the platform was filled with strange devices. Smooth metallic spheres hovered a few inches above the ground, turning slowly as if weightless. Tall crystals stood upright, their surfaces glowing softly. At the heart of it all pulsed a large orb, radiating blue light in steady waves. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He stepped closer, his lantern light reflecting against the polished objects. This is not Mayan, this is something far older. Something not of this earth. Maria walked slowly around the platform, her eyes wide with wonder. She pointed to one of the floating spheres. These are machines. Look at how they move with no strings, no support. This is advanced technology. The pulsing orb at the center hummed softly. Its light grew brighter as Daniel approached, as though sensing his presence. The glow reflected in his eyes, and for a moment he felt his chest vibrate with the rhythm of the hum. Luis kept his distance, his hands tight on the strap of his pack. This is what the stories warned us about. This is the power hidden beneath the earth. Daniel raised his scanner, pointing it at the orb. The device went wild, blinking with streams of symbols that scrolled across the screen. He could not read them, but he knew what they meant. Energy, information, a message. This is the treasure, Daniel said softly. Not gold, not jewels, knowledge. A gift left behind by another world. Peter scratched his head, his nervous laugh echoing in the chamber. Knowledge? That's what all this is? I was hoping for something we could carry out and sell. Maria shook her head firmly. Don't you see? This is more valuable than all the gold in the world. This can change everything we know about history, about life itself. Daniel stepped closer to the orb. He reached out his hand but hesitated. The light pulsed as though inviting him to touch. Slowly, carefully, he placed his palm on its surface. The chamber lit up instantly. Blue light rushed along the walls, filling every carving, every crack, until the whole chamber glowed like the night sky. The floating spheres rose higher, spinning faster, and the crystals pulsed with energy. Daniel staggered back, but the light did not harm him. Instead, it filled the room with images. Above the platform, a projection appeared. Stars, planets, and distant galaxies spinning in a vast map of the universe. The team stared upward in awe as constellations shifted, glowing brighter. Maria covered her mouth with her hands. It is a star map. They are showing us where they came from. Luis's eyes widened as he pointed. Look there. That cluster. It looks like the Pleiades. And there, that is our own sky. The map expanded, showing Earth as a small glowing sphere. Lines stretched from Earth to other stars, as if drawing paths through the heavens. The whispers returned, no longer faint but clear and steady, echoing with a strange rhythm. Daniel's heart pounded. He felt as though the voices were speaking directly into his mind, telling him a truth hidden for centuries. He whispered aloud what he understood. The Mayans were chosen. They were the guardians of this place. They were trusted to keep this secret safe until the time was right. The map faded slowly and the chamber dimmed, leaving only the pulsing orb. The whispers grew quiet again. Maria's voice trembled as she spoke. This is not just history. This is a message. A promise. Humanity was meant to find this. Peter still looked uneasy. But why us? Why now? Daniel turned to him, his eyes burning with determination. Because we are ready. Whoever built this, they knew humanity would one day grow strong enough to understand. And now we stand where the Mayans once stood. This is not just their treasure. It is ours too. The orb pulsed one last time as if agreeing with his words. The chamber grew still again, but the team knew nothing would ever be the same. They had uncovered the true treasure of the cave. It was not riches of the earth, but knowledge of the stars. The chamber remained glowing faintly, but the great star map had faded. Only the pulsing orb at the center gave light now, its rhythm slow and steady like the beating of a heart. The silence that followed was heavy, and each member of the team stood frozen as though afraid to break the moment. Daniel was the first to move. He stepped closer to the orb, his fingers brushing against the surface again. This time the light flared gently. Not as bright as before, but enough to show more symbols. They floated in the air, forming lines and circles, then shifted into shapes of stars once more. Maria quickly pulled out her journal, sketching what she saw. Her voice was calm but filled with awe. These are not random. This is a message. They are trying to speak with us. Peter shifted uncomfortably, glancing from the glowing symbols to the dark corners of the chamber. It looks like writing, but it makes no sense. Even if it is a message, how are we supposed to understand it? Daniel's scanner blinked, translating part of the energy signals. It struggled to form words, but broken fragments appeared on the screen. Grown. Ready, time. Daniel read the words aloud. Grown. Ready. Time. They are telling us humanity has reached a point where we can understand. Luis frowned deeply. His arms crossed as he looked at the orb. Understand what? If this is a warning, we should not stay. But Daniel shook his head firmly. No, this is not a warning. It is a gift. Think of the Mayans. They guarded this for centuries, passing the story as legend. They must have known it would one day be found. This moment is not by accident. The orb pulsed again and the air filled with sound. The whispers rose, but now they were clearer, stronger. It was not just noise anymore. The tones broke into words, fragmented but understandable. A deep voice echoed through the chamber, slow and deliberate, as if shaping human speech for the first time. You, Hever's grown. The words shocked them all. Peter nearly dropped his flashlight. Maria froze in place, her eyes wide, her pencil still in her hand. Luis gripped the strap of his pack tightly, muttering another prayer under his breath. Daniel's heart pounded, but he stepped closer, his voice steady. Who are you? What do you want to tell us? The orb pulsed brighter. The voice returned, halting but clear. You are ready. You are chosen. The chamber shook gently, not with danger but with power. The floating spheres around the platform spun faster, releasing beams of light that connected to the orb. The star map appeared again, but this time it focused on only a few points of light. Earth and 2 distant stars. Maria traced the lines with her eyes. They are showing us a path. A path from Earth to somewhere else, the voice continued. We had waited. We left gift, protect, use. When ready, Daniel understood. This was not a warning. This was an inheritance, a legacy left behind for the day when humans were strong enough to claim it. He turned to his team, his face lit by the glow. They left this for us. They knew humanity would rise, would reach beyond the Earth one day. This is a guide, a call for us to continue where they stopped. Peter shook his head. Why us? Why Earth? There are countless stars. Why give this to humans? Maria looked at Daniel, her voice soft but certain. Because we are survivors, we endure. Maybe that is what they saw in us. Luis did not answer, but his eyes softened as he lowered his head. Even he could not deny the truth before him. The orb dimmed slightly and the projection faded. The whispers grew quiet, leaving the chamber in a deep stillness. Yet Daniel felt no emptiness. Instead, he felt as though a door had been opened in his mind, a door leading to endless stars. He placed his hand once more on the orb. His voice was steady, filled with respect. We hear you. We will carry this forward. The orb pulsed gently, almost like an answer. Then the light faded, leaving the chamber dark again except for the weak glow of their lantern. The team stood in silence for a long time. None of them spoke, for words felt too small for what they had witnessed. At last, Maria closed her journal and whispered, "This changes everything. History, science, faith, nothing will be the same after this." Daniel nodded slowly. His heart still pounded, but his mind was clear. He knew the path ahead would not be easy. Humanity was far from reaching the stars, but the message proved it was possible. The Mayans had kept the secret safe, and now it was humanity's turn to decide what to do with it. Luis finally spoke, his voice low. "The gift is powerful, but power can destroy as much as it can build. We must be careful." Daniel looked at him, understanding his worry. "Yes, we must be careful, but we must not turn away. This was meant for us." The whispers had ended, but their meaning stayed strong. The message of the stars had been delivered. Humanity had been recognized. As the team prepared to move deeper, Daniel felt a new fire inside him. They had not only discovered history, they had been called to the future. After the message of the stars faded, the team felt both awe and unease. The chamber had shown them knowledge beyond their imagination, but Daniel knew the cave's secrets were not fully revealed. The guardians had guided them this far, but something deeper awaited. The passage at the far end of the chamber had not been visible before. Now it glowed faintly, lined with the same blue light as the orb. Daniel stepped forward, lantern held high. "We have to follow it," he said. "This is the next part. Whatever is ahead, it is meant for us." Maria nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "I feel it too. Something is waiting." Luis tightened his grip on his machete but followed silently. Peter trailed behind, muttering nervously about the unknown. Still, none dared turn back. The corridor narrowed as they walked, and the whispers returned. This time the sound was different, less like messages and more like challenges. The walls pulsed with energy, and as they moved forward, strange symbols appeared beneath their feet, glowing briefly with each step. Daniel slowed. He noticed the symbols formed patterns, almost like a path to follow. "Look carefully. The cave is showing us where to go. It is testing our attention, our focus." Maria studied the patterns. "These are not random. Each symbol reacts to movement. If we step wrong, something might happen." The first test came quickly. The floor in front of them opened slightly, revealing a pit that stretched deep into darkness. The glowing symbols on the edge pulsed as a warning. Daniel measured his step carefully, then leapt across the pit. Maria followed, moving with precision. Luis hesitated, but Daniel encouraged him. "Trust your footing." Watch the symbols. One by one, they crossed. Peter stumbled slightly but regained his balance. The cave seemed to respond to their caution, letting them pass safely. The corridor opened into another chamber. This one was filled with tall stone pillars carved with spiral patterns and alien symbols. Between the pillars were puzzles of light, beams that moved slowly across the room. To reach the center, they had to step only where the light did not touch. Maria examined the room. "It is a test of intelligence and timing. We need to work together to pass." Daniel nodded. He watched the moving beams carefully and mapped their rhythm. "Wait for it, now." He led the way, stepping carefully across safe spaces. Maria followed immediately, her hands steady. Luis and Peter moved in sync with the rhythm, their eyes sharp, their movements cautious. The beams shifted as they progressed, but they all reached the center without harm. The orb that pulsed in the middle of the chamber now glowed brighter, recognizing their success. Daniel took a deep breath. These are not random traps. The Guardians built these challenges to measure courage, intelligence, and teamwork. They are making sure we are worthy of what lies ahead. The team stood in the center, catching their breath. The orb pulsed once, then opened a small passageway at its base. From it came a soft hum, a vibration that seemed to resonate in their chests. Luis whispered, "They are testing us not with danger, but with skill, our minds, our courage. They want to see what we can do together." Daniel's eyes shone with determination. "Then we will show them. We are ready." The next chamber was darker, colder. Strange markings covered the walls, forming a tunnel that twisted like a spiral. A low sound filled the air, almost like a heartbeat. The floor was uneven, forcing them to step carefully. Every wrong move caused the walls to glow brighter. signaling a mistake. Peter shivered. I thought the cave wanted us to see the stars. Why all these tests? Maria touched his arm gently. The stars are just the beginning. The cave wants to see our spirit. It wants to know we can face challenges, not just observe beauty. They moved slowly, carefully, each step measured. The tunnel twisted and turned, but they paid attention to the symbols and the glowing walls. Finally, the path opened into a wide chamber. At its center stood a pedestal, carved with spirals and glowing lines. On top rested a small sphere, no larger than a fist, glowing softly like the stars themselves. The air hummed, and the whispers returned, gentle now, approving. Daniel stepped forward. We passed their tests. The guardians allowed us through. Now, this is what awaits us. Maria knelt, examining the sphere. It is alive. It reacts to our presence. This is the final part of the test. It is not just about skill. It is about understanding, about respect. Luis nodded slowly. We have learned. We have faced the challenges together. We must act with care, as they intended. Daniel reached out and placed his hand gently on the sphere. A wave of energy pulsed through him, not painful but filled with knowledge and clarity. The chamber lit up in soft blue light. The whispers spoke clearly, forming words they all could understand in their minds. You have proven worth. You have courage, wisdom, and unity. You are ready. The team looked at one another, awe written on every face. Peter whispered, Ready for what? Daniel smiled, his eyes reflecting the glow. Ready for the next step. Ready to inherit what the Mayans guarded for centuries. We are about to see the true secret of the cave of echoing spirits. The sphere pulsed one last time, sending light toward the ceiling. A hidden door opened, revealing a path deeper into the earth. The guardians remained behind, silent and still, their task complete. Daniel led the team forward, feeling a sense of purpose stronger than fear. They had passed the tests of courage, intelligence, and unity. The cave had judged them and found them worthy. And now, the true treasure waited. The hidden passage glowed faintly as Daniel led his team deeper into the earth. The walls were smooth and polished, unlike anything they had seen before. Strange, patterns of light pulsed along the walls, guiding their steps as if the cave itself wanted them to continue. Maria walked close behind him, her journal in hand filled with sketches and notes of everything they had discovered. I never imagined anything like this, she whispered. It is beyond history, beyond science. Luis followed silently, keeping his machete ready but relaxed. Even he could feel that danger had ended. This was something else, something that demanded respect, not fear. Peter trailed at the back, still nervous, but his eyes shone with curiosity. I can't believe we made it this far. It feels like walking through a dream. At the end of the passage, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern. The ceiling was high, so high that the lantern light could not reach it. In the center of the chamber, covered by vines and dust, was a vessel unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface shone with smooth silver, reflecting the faint glow from the walls. It was not a ship like humans had built, but a craft designed for the stars, perfect and alive with energy. Daniel stepped forward slowly, awe filling him. This is the real treasure, he said softly. The Mayans were not guarding gold or jewels, they were guarding this, a vessel to take us beyond the world. Maria's hand hovered over the surface of the craft. It is beautiful. The technology. It is far beyond anything we have. Whoever made this wanted to share it with someone ready. Luis nodded slowly. They trusted us. That is why the Guardians allowed us here. We have been judged and found worthy. The orb they had passed in the last chamber pulsed faintly from the pedestal, and its light spread across the walls. The whispers returned, calm and gentle. They were not sounds anymore, but words forming in their minds. You are chosen. Protect. Carry. Forward. Peter stepped closer, awe written on his face. Chosen for what? To fly to the stars? To leave Earth? Daniel placed his hand firmly on the ship's surface. Energy pulsed through him, not painful but alive. He felt knowledge flowing, understanding filling him in ways he could not describe. We are not meant to leave for conquest. We are meant to explore, to learn, to carry forward the wisdom of those who came before us. Maria touched his arm gently. We have the responsibility to protect this. The Mayans did their part. Now it is our turn. Luis looked around the cavern, his eyes shining. This is humanity's inheritance. We have been trusted. We must not fail. The craft hummed softly under their hands. Lights traced the curves of its surface, glowing brighter with each pulse of their energy. Daniel realized the vessel was alive in its own way. It responded to them, their thoughts and intentions. It was not a machine to command, but a partner to guide humanity toward the stars. Peter finally smiled, excitement breaking through his nervousness. This is unbelievable. We found the stars without even leaving Earth. Daniel turned to his team, his face serious. We must remember this is not a game. We have discovered something ancient and powerful. It can guide humanity to knowledge, to understanding, but it must be treated with care. The Guardians were right. Not everyone is ready for this. We have a responsibility. Maria nodded. We have learned from the tests. We have courage, unity, and wisdom. That is why we are here. That is why this treasure found us. Luis crossed himself quietly, a gesture of respect. We must honor those who came before. Protect what we have found. Daniel stepped back and looked at the cavern one last time. The ship waited silently, glowing with soft silver light. The whispers had ended, leaving only a calm energy. He felt a connection to something greater than himself, to the Mayans who had guarded this for centuries, and to the unknown beings who had left it behind. He turned to his team. This is the beginning, not the end. Humanity has just opened a door to the stars, to knowledge, to a future we have only dreamed about. The Mayans preserved this for us because they believed we could rise to meet it. And now, we must carry that forward. The team stood together in the glowing cavern, united by awe and purpose. For the first time, they truly understood what it meant to be guardians themselves. The cave had given them a gift, and with it, a mission. The whispers faded completely, and the cavern returned to stillness. The craft remained, waiting patiently for the day humans would be ready to awaken it fully. Daniel knew that day would come. They had passed the tests, uncovered the treasure, and received the message of the stars. Humanity's inheritance was real, and the team walked out of the cave with hearts full of hope, minds filled with wonder, and a promise to protect the legacy that had been entrusted to them. The world outside the jungle had no idea what had been discovered beneath the earth. But Daniel and his team carried the knowledge forward. They had touched the future and they were ready. The cave of echoing spirits had spoken, and humanity had answered.